Welcome. I'm Janelle Kolaski, a career mindset coach and actor.
And I'm Amanda Dubois, a self-authenticity and prosperity life coach and actor as well. And we're your co-host of Mindset Artistry YouTube channel,
where we teach you the art of discovering and using your mindset
to build a career and life you desire. Back to Mindset Artistry podcast. Today we have JaxDallas as a special guest today. Woo, woo, woo. I am so excited to have her on the podcast. And let me tell you a bit about Jackie. JaxDallas is a TV and film actress who is known for her roles on hit shows. And she has shared screens with Academy Award winning actors such as like Morgan Freeman, Juliette Binoche. And her journey as an actor began in 2014 when she left her career in medicine to pursue her passion. And she hasn't looked back since. She's an advocate for representation in Hollywood and uses her platform to support better access for healthcare for women and marginalized communities. She can be seen on many platforms, but instead, let's jump in to Jackie today. Jackie, how are you feeling?
Good. I am feeling good. I am happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. So let's dive into this. Tell me, so you did come from the medical field. So I definitely want to talk about that because that was so interesting to me, especially those out there who are maybe going through their second half of their life or third and transitioning into a new career, a hobby that has turned into a career. And I know you're a big advocate for becoming your hobby, becoming your career. Tell me the moment or moments that led up to that aha moment or that decision to change your career from the medical field into the film and TV industry.
Yeah, my aha moment happened in 2014. Building up to that, I mean, starting when I was a kid, I always wanted to be an actor, I always wanted to be a performer, be a storyteller. I was always animated and loved being the center of attention. I grew up in a small town in Florida where being an actor wasn't like a real job. The whole world of Hollywood was so far away, so fantasy. I do like drama club and theater camp and stuff like that. And my mom would just be like, okay, dear, that's great. Go do your homework. Let's go grow up to be a responsible adult. So I ended up going down that track, and I come from a family of doctors. It wasn't anything unexpected. Being a doctor was kind of like just going to be the next step. It was the understanding that that was going to be my like future. And I did all of med school. I did a year of clinical research. I did an internship in general surgery. I wanted to be a surgeon. I thought it was really exciting and really cool, but the lifestyle of that is so intense. It's like 80-hour work weeks. You're constantly on call. It's very high stress, high stakes environment. And after a year of that, I just realized it wasn't sustainable for me. It wasn't good for my personality type. So I switched over to pathology. I was interested in like forensics and stuff like that, also studying biopsies, diagnosing conditions. And that was great because I had that an anatomical background from surgery. I felt comfortable with it. I felt good at it, but it just wasn't something I was passionate about. Being in a room looking under microscopes all day is not like the most exciting job in the world. And after 3 years of that, I kind of said, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life either, The work-life balance in pathology is much better. It's as close to a 9-to-5 as you can get in medicine. And so I found myself getting back into acting as kind of a weekend, evenings, hobbies, time off thing, doing student films, indie films, background work on TV shows. And just the more I did it, the more I was like, wow, I miss this. I love this. How do I do this? So I don't know. I asked a lot of questions, and I got to know different people and people who were doing it, who were pursuing it. And 2014, I decided I was going to make the jump and bought a car. I didn't have a car. I was in Chicago at the time. loaded it up with whatever I could fit, sold everything else, did Route 66 to California, and haven't really looked back since.
Wow, that's incredible. And I was going to ask you, okay, because I think the iconic moment, I think your life is actually a movie, to be honest, because down Route 66 and going to California, was that a moment of like, I'm doing this? Like, did you
Yeah.
have an existential moment
Oh
in
my God. I had so many existential moments. Yeah. Like that moment leading up to it. My sister, she came up from Florida where she was at the time and, helped me pack. We did this road trip together. It was really kind of a transformative mindset. I was going from like one life to the other, and I'm very comfortable. I don't want to use the term starting over because this is like the biggest start over, but I've moved around a lot. I've kind of explored different things. Even on my journey to get to medicine and get to medical school, I worked all these odd jobs. I was bartending. So for me to try something new and different was really exciting. But because medicine is something that you invest so much time and energy and money, um, that one was much more difficult to walk away from. It's like you've spent your whole life training for something, and then to make the decision to say, hey, you know what? I don't want it anymore. It's a very strange feeling to have, but it was a big risk. It was if it didn't work out, it'd be stupid. I had a lot of my colleagues were like just so confused and so perplexed. They just didn't understand. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. But yeah. And then even once I got to California, starting out as an actor, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. People don't realize that you don't just show up and get discovered. It's a career path all on its own. You have to put in the work, you have to put in the investment. And, unlike a lot of other careers, there's no guarantee. You could be so successful or you could be so talented and you could work so hard and you can know the right people and be at the right places and still nothing could come from it. Or you have a blip. One thing happens and then, that's it. That's your 15 minutes. So I feel like once I even got to California, trying to find that acting community that, I didn't know anyone here. I didn't go to school for acting. I don't have a background in it. Just kind of learning from the ground up. There were definitely a lot of days and nights where I was like, did I make a mistake? Did I throw everything away? Who doesn't love financial stability, right? I went from being a doctor, going back to being a bartender, a dog sitter, and an Uber driver. So there was a lot of humbling moments in that too.
I love that. I love the courage it took and I don't think it's necessarily starting over, but starting anew.
Mhm.
Straying from the path that you decided you were going to go on. And for anyone
Right.
out there, I think as creatives,
Mhm.
if it's in you, like Nell said, it has to be fed. It's like a monster, or like a
That's
garden.
what I want to ask a question about. Yeah. Like, I was just like, what is, because a lot of times people ask us, how did you know when to switch? Because you said I couldn't stop, like, thinking about it, and it's something I enjoyed. But so many people we talk to are so afraid. I mean,
Mhm.
Amanda also left a corporate career, and it's like you almost have to be a little crazy because every day you keep going. I don't know. Everyone's like, well, how did you know when to leave your 9 to 5, or how did you feel safe? And I mean, for me, I did more modeling first, and my modeling work finally took, over enough. Like, I wasn't making like enough to like really soar, but I could leave the other job. And I just had a friend that said, you can let go now because the energy you're putting into this job that you don't really want is taking away from more energy that you could put into this, which you really do want. And so, that helped me, but you two, I don't know, coming from the 9 to 5, I was working 7 odd jobs. So what advice do you have for people that are like, it's intuition, or how do they know?
I mean, I remember my parents, I remember my parents telling me with medicine and surgery specifically, because that's what I wanted to go into, it takes so much out of you. If there is anything else in the world that you would rather do, like, think about it. Like, you have to want to do it with every fiber of your being. I shouldn't say if there's anything else you want to do it, because my parents were definitely like, you're going to be a doctor, but they were like, you have to want to do this, trying to like, just, I don't know, ever since I was a kid, trying to mold me into like, I want to be a doctor. Right. And for me, like I said, I did a year of clinical research. Medical school it was fine. I'm knock on wood. I felt like school was not, it came more naturally to me. So medical school was fine. I didn't love it, biochemistry, Jesus, if I never see that again, I'm totally fine. But once I started doing clinical research, I was like, this is a whole different mindset. It's a whole different way of thinking, not just learning facts, but the application of it and stuff. And I was like, okay, I got to reframe myself. It was okay. Didn't love it. Went into surgery, which was my goal at the time. Realized after that, I actually hated it. It's so interesting if you can pick and choose the parts that you love. Like in acting, for example, being on set, right? Being in front of the camera, like that is the best feeling in the world. If I could just be in the operating room all day, that would be great, right? But it's all the background work, not background extra work, but like all the homework you have to do in your career. And for me, like not just being exhausted and just like hungry all the time because I couldn't eat when I wanted to, I couldn't use the bathroom when I wanted to. It just, aside from just being uncomfortable and tired, I really didn't enjoy anything else about it, So I decided I'm not ready to walk away from medicine yet. Let me pivot to another career or another specialty, right? Because in medicine, there's a lot of different types. There's a lot of different fields. You could be a pediatric person. You could be a primary care family medicine. You could go into emergency medicine. You could be a radiologist and just be antisocial. So for me, I chose pathology for the lifestyle because I realized after surgery that my like self-care time was so important. So for me, having the most flexible and this is the worst way to say it, working the least number of hours as possible was a very big priority for me. And so pathology fit that. But then, like I said, I mean, after a couple of years, it wasn't something I was passionate about. And I feel at the root of it, Amanda, I think you touched upon this. Creatives and artists, we come from a place of passion. We prioritize that like love for life over the stability for life. We're willing to take the risks. We're willing to do 7 different jobs to do the one that we really want to do. And so for me, the stability was it was nice, it was comfortable, but it was kind of mind numbing, if that makes any sense. Every day kind of bled into each like, the next. And I think the moment for me also that helped me kind of pushed me over. And Janelle, you mentioned this too, about having that friend that encouraged you, like you were ready to take the step. I do have to give a lot of credit to the people that I love and love me. My husband, who I met in medical school, he is a doctor. And, you're in a different place when you're a student. And then when you're working a couple of years in a job that you don't necessarily enjoy, you become a different person. And he really wanted me to be happy. And God bless him. I love him so much. So we came up with a plan to move to California and, he would have this stable income for a period of time. I was a couple of academic years ahead of him. So he was still in training, which is why we still had to have 7 jobs. He was not making doctor salary. And my parents, I will give them so much credit. Asian parents are very difficult to please. There's that stereotype, that reputation. And they were the ones that wanted me to become a doctor. But at the end of the day, I think parents, even if they want you to become a doctor, they want their kids to be happy. and they saw that I wasn't happy. So they knew I always wanted to be an actor. This wasn't completely out of left field. And so when I, kind of was like, hey, listen, I'm going to give it a try, they had their worries. They voiced their worries a lot. They wouldn't be good parents if they didn't. But they also kind of knew that, what was the word I'm looking for? Like an MD, I'll always have it. I've graduated with it. That's my degree. I'll always have it. Worst case scenario, I'll open up a Botox clinic in LA. You know what I mean? Like there's ways. So they were supportive, and it's funny now. I feel like my parents are my biggest fans. It's like my sister, she's a doctor, and whenever we go home for the holidays or for like family reunions and stuff, my sister went through the whole thing. She's still a doctor. She's an OB-GYN. And, she succeeded in being that great Asian daughter. But being a doctor, like I said, in my family is nothing exceptional, nothing special. So whenever we go home, my dad's always talking about my TV shows. And like, one of my very first jobs, I was a background extra in a Marvel movie. And you saw me for like 1 second. And my dad had that screenshotted, and that was like his like proudest moment of me. And it's like, it's really funny. It's really funny how everything just kind of came together. And, it's really, the support is very important.
I love that. And I'm so inspired by that, because community is everything and support is everything. And for those that may not have it, definitely, do your best to find it. It is challenging, and, it can be scary because a lot of us do it alone. A lot of the preparation as actors is alone. Is alone. And we have to be vulnerable in private, but yet publicly. And
sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I will just add on real quick. I mean, if you're in a place where you feel like you don't have that support system to make the jump, it's so hard. It's so hard, even with a support system. I mean, let's not get it twisted. I wasn't like, okay, I got my mom's blessing, it was a lot. And there were a lot of stumbles even after I made that choice. Like I said, okay, well, if things are kind of not going so well, maybe you should consider coming back. But I will say, if you make the leap, you will find your support system, especially as an artist. We find our community, we find, the people who love doing the same things, and it's so supportive and it's so helpful. And if you find the right people, emphasis on right people, there are cutthroat people in this industry too. But if you find the right people, I mean, they'll be there for you when you're down, when you missed a job, when you blew an audition, to help you read for auditions, to go with you to the red carpet parties. It's such a good feeling to be able to share that with like-minded people, because even though my parents and my husband support me, they're not artists. They only support from the sense that, like, I love you and I want you to be happy, but they don't understand the nuances that it requires. My husband read my auditions with me. He was my reader for maybe 6 months before it was like, I can't do this anymore.
That's so funny. Yeah, my mom was my reader for so long. Got to the point where I was like, I can't do it, Mom. I can't have you. I love you so much, and I'm grateful for her supporting me. But I understand that because we are artists, our emotions and the way we move through the world is a bit different than those that aren't. And I think everybody's creative, of course. I think everyone has an ability to be creative, because I think in the medical field you can be as creative as you want to be. And I think, and I think believe in yourself in any field that you are in. And I love that you trusted and tapped into and were aware of your intuition to take that leap. And I think anyone out there who may be struggling with the idea of, is this the right thing for me? Mm-hmm. There is no right or wrong. It's what is meant for you to do, because it could be right to go. And if you had stayed in the medical field, it would have been right. And you would have found your way, and you would, it would have worked. And it's right as an actor, and you just got to find what is going to fulfill you the most. What is going to fulfill you, because at anything that you do, and like you said, you're going to struggle at some point in anything that you're pursuing. You're not going to just wake up one day and, well, I'm a millionaire. That's it. It's great. I woke up, even if you win the lottery,
That'd be
still
nice.
struggle there, right? Oh, if I could just blink my eyes many times and be a millionaire, I would love it.
Yeah,
There's the reality of it is it's gonna take stages. You have to learn. There are things that you wouldn't learn without the struggle. You wouldn't learn without the bump in the road. And
absolutely.
had you not pursued the medical field and had you not gone that route and gone that route, and I can't speak to you, like, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't have gone to the acting, or if you had did it sooner, because there would have been maybe a all the things that could
Right.
possibly come up.
I think of stuff like that all the time. I really do. Like, what if, right? What if the alternate scenario in a parallel universe? Like, what am I doing with my life, right? And it really makes me wonder because, I think we all kind of reflect sometimes about the butterfly effect of things, right? It's like, if I hadn't gotten that weird job at the bar, would I have had enough money to save up for this? And would I, it's so crazy to think about. But starting off, like, yeah, it takes a lot of steps, and I would say, like, I didn't just quit my job and like drive to California. I took steps even before I left. I didn't want to be completely reckless and an irresponsible person. So, like I said, when I was still living in Chicago, I started acting. I started doing these indie films, and I got a couple of speaking roles under my belt, all independent, non-union stuff. But still, when I made it to California, I wasn't just like, where am I? What am I doing? I knew what a slate was. I knew what hitting your mark was. My brain was already like, okay, I can memorize like 2-3 pages at a time, so I kind of like was starting to get my foot in the door, if that makes any sense. And I think I was doing a lot of research. I was reading so much about acting and the business of it. My brain was already wired that way. And I think whenever I get into that mental circle of, I should have done this earlier, like that kind of what if is also a version of regret, right? Like, should I have just done this earlier? And you know what? I believe truly that everything happens the way it's meant to happen. And if it isn't good, maybe it just hasn't happened yet, right? Because if I hadn't gone through medical school, I don't know, and just the gruelingness of residency, I don't know if I would have had the same like perspective as an actor, because acting takes a very emotional and mental toll on you too. First, like when you're starting out, it might not be the exhaustion aspect of it, but putting yourself out there, being literally like you're putting yourself out there. You are the product. That's about as vulnerable as you can get. And to be rejected over and over and over again and critiqued and told, or just ghosted, right? You never hear back if you don't get the job. So you're constantly wondering, what did I do wrong? I feel like if I hadn't gone through the rigors of medicine, I wouldn't have had the confidence to be like, you know what, I can do some pretty cool things. I can do this. Being older, I didn't get into it till I was almost 30. I was 29 and a half when I moved. And if I had started younger, when I was much more, insecure or impressionable, or, just trying to keep up with the social media girls, like, I feel like that would have been a lot harder for me. Whereas when I was older, I was already kind of comfortable with myself and saying, you know what, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I'll continue trying to become a better version of myself, but this is where I'm starting, and I'm never going to become someone I'm not, and I'll figure out how to carve out my own space in this industry if it's meant to be. Another way that I'm very grateful about medicine is that it helped me get some of my first auditions. Anyone who's in it knows it can take years before you start getting network auditions. And I found myself getting like more than half of my auditions were in medical dramas or roles for nurses or paramedics. And, my agents were able to pitch me as like a real life medical doctor. And I think that caught some eyes. So that in itself helps me kind of get my foot in the door and get my start and get my first few credits, which are so important to get the ball rolling in this industry.
I love that. And it's funny that you bring it up because I was saying I'm a little older than 30 now. But I would say I'm finally getting to the.
We've been doing this for a minute.
Just a little bit, I'm like 27 to 32 for life. But there's like, I find myself, I'm finally getting the confidence now of that, like, just not caring, and this is what I am. And, I joke with Amanda. I've found out the 3 times that I've done TV gigs, I'm the woman with all the money, the waspy, whatever.
Yeah,
but I'm like a coal miner's granddaughter. That is where I come from. It's so funny. And earlier you spoke to like talking about self-care and how that's important to you. And I know Amanda, has taught me a lot, and she's much better at this before me because I like hustle and grind, come from very blue collar, and just like school was so big for me. I actually was a teacher, got a degree in teaching, special ed. My brother has autism. So all of that. But then I've literally broken down. Like my back has given out from stress and like all of these things. And I'm finally doing the self-care and knowing that it has to come first. So what advice do you have for people around that aspect of things?
Gosh, I think it's great that mental health is becoming so much more of a conversation. I know, 10 years it really wasn't part of the conversation at all. It was a suck it up, deal with it. Everyone's got problems. Who cares? And especially in medicine, showing any signs of mental stress, I won't say mental illness, but just showing that you can't hack it for whatever reason is a sign of weakness. And it has the potential to endanger your career, like it does in many other careers too. But it just, I bore that stress for so long, not just the stress of the job, but also the stress of knowing that I'm not doing what I'm meant to do in life. And I had a lot of physical ailments too. My back was hurting, my neck was hurting. I was getting steroid injections for a couple of years. Like I couldn't figure out how, like I'm not young, but I'm not old enough to be like having all these issues. You know what I mean? I was like, I bought a mattress that's really expensive. Why am I still having these back problems? And it's really magical that when you find that place that makes you happy, a lot of that goes away. There's something to be said about psychosomatic pain. But with self-care, there's different ways that you have to give yourself self-care in different industries, right? Based on what is available to you, what your job demands are, if I, as an actor, like I have the luxury of sleeping in when I'm not on set, and I love that. If I'm not working that day, I can revolve my schedule around, I have 4 auditions, they're due in 2 days. So I'm just going to do half of them this afternoon when I'm feeling better, or I'm just going to knock them out this morning. There's a lot of flexibility, and that's very conducive to my personality. So that was helpful too. And then in your other time, do what makes you happy. You have the luxury of being able to do that when I'm not working and stuff. But I would also say, when you start off doing something creative or something that you're passionate about, it's easy to turn that into a job. And what I mean by that is throwing yourself into it so much 24/7 that even though it started out as something you love, it has become a source of stress or anxiety. So I think one of the important things is learning to establish boundaries for yourself. And that is really, really hard. It's easier to establish boundaries with others sometimes, but especially as an artist, where it's almost there's a direct correlation of how much you succeed comes from how much hard work do you put into it, right? If I'm not submitting and I'm not auditioning, I'm never going to book a role. There's just an order of things. So I found myself constantly like submitting for things, scouring, Actors Access, casting networks, Backstage, Craigslist, IMDb. I mean, like the most ridiculous sources. I was just flailing, trying to throw spaghetti at the wall, hoping something sticks. And auditioning whenever if I got at 6 o'clock, I'd be auditioning till midnight, 1 a.m, just trying to do it over and over and over again till I got that perfect take, And at some point you have to walk away from that and let yourself recharge. Because the more you stress yourself out about something you love, one, you start to love it less, and you start to avoid the things that will make you happy. And then you start to run out of things that are going to make you happy. So for me, it started becoming, my husband was like, okay, let's pump the brakes here, like he gets home from work at like 7 or 8 o'clock, and like he never sees me because I'm just like holed up in my room in front of my laptop. So I started establishing boundaries of when he gets home, the laptop gets shut, and I don't think about it until the next day. I know it's very time sensitive for actors sometimes. I'm still attached to my phone. It's like in my hand all the time. So if I get an audition notice, it'll ding. Then I can quickly just see like, okay, when is it due? If it's not due until tomorrow or 2 days from now or a week from now, I put it away. I don't do it that night. So it started off small like that, just establishing time boundaries for myself. And then boundaries of don't do things that make you compromise your integrity. Don't do things that take away from the energies and the efforts that you could put towards, the stuff that suck the energy away from the things you want to do. Like Janelle, you were saying your other job was preventing you from putting, that effort into the efforts of the things you wanted to do. I think it's a learning curve. These are just like advice that I can spew, but unless you're in it, it's hard to figure that out for yourself. And everyone has different self-care. Some people it's sleep, like me. Some people it's massages. Some people it's painting. Some people it's wine. It's figure out what works for you, and moderation, moderation with everything. Oh, you're still muted. Ah.
Of course, I think there's a theme throughout what we've talked about so far, and I love that in each stage or transition in your life, you have taken the steps before you've made that decision. And for anyone out there who is like, I want to make a decision, I got to get out of this job, I got to get out of this relationship, or I'm stressed, start small. You said you went back and go, okay, I'm unhappy in this. I don't see my future in this. You said, okay, I'm gonna go back to acting. You started doing classes. You did little things to start activating that compass within you to start steering you towards the direction that you wanted to go. And the same thing was when you did go to California, you did the small jobs, you did the research. You were not just going there oblivious and go, okay guys, I'm ready to be an actor. I'm pretty and I'm talented. Let's do this. You were like, all right, I'm taking this seriously. This is my career. Any decision that you're making, I think anyone out there, it can be a painter, it can be a musician, it can be working with numbers. It doesn't matter. But whatever it is, do the research. And Janelle's very big on like doing your career research, taking the time, figuring out what you enjoy and what you don't, and then figuring out how the things that you don't find enjoyable, find a way to find them enjoyable. Like you said, balance. Because you were able to create that balance, you were able to enjoy the process, even though it can be stressful. And you talked about working like 80 hours a week, but as actors, we also work about like 60, 40, like 40, 50, 60 hours a week, depending on your role, right?
Right. Or even if
Even
you're
before.
not, yeah, you just because you're not paid for something doesn't mean it's not part of your job,
Right.
like it's
Exactly.
so much.
So
Yeah.
it's a decision that you have to make of what energy and what love and what passion you're going to put into the stages. Because as actors or creatives, there's a lot of work we got to do with no one around. There's
Right.
a lot of work that has to be done with no one's around. You get that audition, like you said, you picked up, okay, cool. It's not due to 2 days. I can rest today. It does, and I'm with you. I came from the corporate world. I literally, it was the most fearful thing to leave my job, the 9 to 5, because of stability. The
Right.
parents, my dad telling me like, well, wait, you have the security, you have consistent income. And, I'm like, yeah, but it's not making me happy. I'm really depressed and like, I'm really sad. And I'm like, I can do it, but is it going to fulfill me in the long run? And it took me at least 2 years before I decided to make that decision. And it was the scariest decision ever. But it's like, If not now, when?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah.
And take whatever advantages that you do have, whether it is financial stability, like I saved up money so I could get headshots because I knew headshots were so important and I had no idea how expensive they were.
Yes, speaking truth here. Yes, yes. Use your advantages. I
Use
love that.
whatever advantage that you're coming from towards that. And bottom line, I think a lot of artists come from, not just actors like, hey, I'm here, let's get famous. No matter what your medium is, we come from a place of passion. I want this. I want this. And you need that fire to keep going, but you also need to learn the business side of whatever medium you pursue, because just because you want something doesn't mean the world is out there to make your dreams come true. Nobody, I don't want to say no one cares, but acting is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they're not going to risk a multi-million-dollar movie on someone who doesn't know anything yet. You have to put in the work. It's just like any other career. You start off as an intern, as a background actor, as a this, as a that, as a student. Like, I didn't go to school for acting. I started taking classes when I decided to make that transition. I took a auditioning for beginners class, and I was like, I just thought you show up and read some words and we're awesome, and it's so much more than that. So treat it like a business. Understand that, in the scheme of things, you're a cog in this wheel, for not just the process, like, you need to submit and then the casting needs to call you in. If it's network or a big thing, you have an agent, your agent submits you, like agents and casting directors, they don't work for you. You guys are a team together and you have to respect their position in the industry. They also worked really hard to get to where they are, and they want to do a good job so that they continue to get hired. And they're not going to risk putting you in something or presenting you to a director or a producer if there's the potential that you're going to make them look bad, right? It's just another version of a referral. So understanding what everyone's role is, understanding, what your part is as an actor. You are the product, making sure that you have everything you need to set yourself up for success. An agent's not going to sign you unless you have headshots. If you have a resume, if you have some experience, big agents aren't going to accept you unless you have a demo reel. It's this constant forward progress, and you grow and your team will grow with you. Your career will grow with you, and it's not overnight. You hear of these overnight successes that took 10 years and if you treat it like a business, if you reframe that mindset, then you give people a reason to root for your success. You give them a reason to hire you. You give them a reason to give you a chance. Just saying, I want this isn't enough. This is a business, and you got to learn it that way.
Wow, and I hope someone takes that to heart, because I think me and Janelle have been constantly trying to drill
all the time.
all the time. Like, this is a business. It's not just a creative side. Like, I'm just going to show up, and I was oblivious to it as well. Going in, I didn't go to school for it. I got my degree in forensic psychology. It wasn't something that I thought was even possible for me, but I knew it was something of interest, and I did the background work. And similar to you, what is this industry? I got to find out more. And it was tapping into the curiosity of wanting more will activate within you to discover more. And all right, again, doing the research and all the things, and then asking the questions, getting your materials together. Those are the little things that provides confidence within you and security within you, that when you show up, you're ready to show out because you're like, I did the work.
Right.
And at that point, this industry is very big on rejections, right? We're about 99.999% of the time you're getting rejected. But it's in that rejection, are you still enjoying the process? Are you still enjoying this work? You know, and also accepting that the rejection is a part of it as well, because you're not meant for all the roles. You're not meant to do all the projects, right? You use your medical experience, right? Like Janelle, you have your background, like there's an assumption or your type, right, that you get casted for. Why not use that to get in the door and work on other things in between and go, yeah, also I could do this. I can ski, I can, you know, and that's incredible.
Yeah, I'm picking up the waspy arts for sure. I've been to the Hamptons 4 times, and I'm like, okay, I have to ski, I have to learn tennis, I have to know how to walk in heels. It's so funny, but it's fun. It's fun now, but I had to work. I had to work through that. I don't know, just a quick note of rejection. I see yet another question, but it's just like taking the weight off that. I took everything so personally. And then, I mean, like speaking to the business side of things, the only reason modeling picked up was because I almost quit acting and modeling twice. And then, but I kept being like, no, I feel like I'm really meant to do this. And I wrote down everything you could do, like I could do. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm not doing it consistently though. Oh, I'm not doing this at all. And then I told myself, I'll give it 1 year of like doing this. I made it, Amanda knows I'm like numbers and schedules. And like I made a schedule for myself, and that's when things like, you know, took off. But the rejection piece was really hard for me to push through. Like now I'm like, okay, 9 no's till I get the yes or whatever. But, you know, it's like Amanda and I always talk about like doing the therapy and like taking it to like really like sitting with whatever is upsetting you. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know, Amanda, what your question was, but I just would also love to know, Jackie, like how you work through rejection or anything. It doesn't have to be rejection, anything in the industry that, you know, we have to keep moving, but then you have to also process because we are the instrument. So,
Right. I think for rejection, God, it's so hard to not take it personally. You could be the most confident person, but then you inevitably you're going to take something personally. One of the things I started seeing, you know, when I got a little more into it and started seeing kind of the backside of things a little bit more, I started recognizing the numbers game. You know, you hear it's a numbers game, and it sounds, you can either interpret that as disheartening, or you can interpret that as little wins every step of the way. There's hundreds of thousands of actors, right? I mean, I think there's 160,000 just in SAG. So when you're starting out, all the non-union actors, all the other people coming off of their buses from Kansas or wherever they're coming from, you know, there's so many of us. And for you to hit any milestone, right? Getting your first agent, getting your first audition, no matter what the project is, getting your first speaking line, getting your first SAG eligibility, however you got voucher, right? There's just so many little milestones along the way. And when you think of it in terms of how many people you had to work past to get to that point, it's a really nice feeling. It kind of like, it gives you perspective a little bit. And then getting that audition, you know, when you don't get it, it hurts because you wanted it so bad, but you also have to realize you're not the only one they auditioned. They auditioned 30, 10, 20, 30, hundreds of people, depending on the role. And, you know, only one can get it. That means everyone else also got rejected. And you hear of celebrities who miss out on roles all the time. It's like, how can you imagine that, you know, so-and-so of all these Academy Award winning movies got beat out by some unknown actor for whatever role? You know, you hear it happens throughout your career, and it's just a part of it. Yeah. And honestly, one of the things I hear is don't book the job, book the room. And it sounds kind of like, but wait, I want the job, right? But in this field, a casting director casts, you know, once you book a show, that's it, right? Unless you're a recurring character or a series regular. If you're a co-star or a guest star, or, you know, whatever small role, that's it. You're out of the running for the rest of the show. But if you book the room and the casting director really likes you, they will keep calling you in, you know? So if they're auditioning 10 people per role and they audition you 10 times, you know, your odds are getting there. And it's not, another side note about the business, it's not casting that picks, right? It's the director that ultimately picks who gets the role. And different shows, you could have a different director every episode. So it's not even the same director who's saying no every single time. The numbers are really crazy and mind-boggling when you think about it. But like I said, you can think of it as either disheartening or, using it as like a little milestone thing, or not to be so hard on yourself, because not everyone can get everything.
Yeah, that's great. Now circling back, because you have medical experience. How was
Tensions.
it for you to jump into a medical drama? Like, was it like an aha moment? Like, wow, this is because you have experience. You've done surgeries or whatever you had to do. I don't know the proper lingo, but you've been on medical dramas. Do you miss it, like the medical field? But how has your experience served you on those sets?
Oh gosh, it's been invaluable, not just with the audition process. Some of these scripts are very technical, and I can't imagine having to rattle off abbreviations and just letters and numbers. And, some of the conditions and words are just so hard to say. Um, I think that once I get on set, first of all, I mean, I remember the first time I was on set, I was just absolutely blown away by like how real everything looked, how immersive the thing is. Nothing works. They just beep at you, but just it looked so real. I like had flashbacks. And then one of the things I think is has really helped me is sometimes for smaller roles, it's not like a big role where they coach you or they train you or they teach you how to do things. When you're on set, especially for a television show, it moves so quickly. And I've done soap operas where you're lucky if you get 2 takes. You got to nail it on the first try. It's so fast. So I can imagine how overwhelming it must be to be given this technical role and not know what you're doing. Like if I got put in like a role to be like a cop or a firefighter, I would just be like, cops would watch the show and be so angry at their TV and how wrong, like I can't even hold a gun right? So for me, being able to step into that, it gives me more confidence on set. And if I express to either the director or usually the director knows, right? Because they picked me. If they know that I have a medical background, it makes their job easier because they assume like she knows what she's doing. I don't have to show her how to take a pulse, I don't need to show her how to start an IV. There was this one show where it was kind of a chaotic emergency scene. And they did this emergency tracheotomy in the scene, which is where a person can't breathe. So you have to make the cut in the neck. And it wasn't me doing it, it was the main actress. And so she's not a doctor. And so she's, about to make the incision. And I feel like when you're standing next to a person, it's instinctual to like cut towards yourself, right? Which would have been in this direction. But in real life, we actually do tracheotomies this way. I don't expect anyone to know this. And I probably wouldn't had I not had a background in surgery specifically. So before the camera started rolling, I was like, hey, you want to really impress everyone on this show? You should do this. So little things like that kind of make me feel, not just confident, but actually like part of making the show. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely, it does. And that's incredible. Being on a variety of genres, because you've worked in like fantastical medical dramas, thriller, I think also action a bit. What is and you've worked with some heavy hitters as well, not to name
Yeah.
drop either, but what are the 3 things that you like, or at least advice that you've gotten from an actor or actress or anyone that has stuck with you to this day that's been so impactful?
Oh gosh, I have to think about that one. I want to quickly make a statement. The reason, to anyone who's watching, we're being so vague right now. I feel like we need to address it.
Yes, let's address this. Let's address the elephant in the room.
We're striking right now. So I'm, part of the strike is to not promote any of the studio or network shows. So that's why we're being vague. But if you go to my IMDb, you can see it all. I guess advice, one, when it comes to auditions, one great piece of advice is do it and then forget it. Once you've submitted it, forget it, leave it. Don't sit by the phone or the email waiting, like, did I get it? Did I not get it? Because like I said, like we've said, 99% of the time you don't get it. And in this industry, 98% of the time, you don't know why. You're never even given the rejection letter. It's not even like a college application. Thank you, but you didn't get it. And it's just nothing. It's absolute radio silence. So I feel like if you're waiting for something that may never come, that just drains you, it wears away at you. Whereas if you're able to put it out there and then forget it, you can move on. You can focus on the next thing or focus on whatever you're doing in the interim until you get the next thing. So that has been really, really helpful for me. Regarding acting itself, I feel that there is a lot of talk about what's your technique? How do you do it? How do you get into it? And when I first started out and I didn't go to school for it, I had no idea what's Meisner, what's this, what's that. Method I only heard because it kind of has a bad rap in the industry, but I think it's very useful to take classes and to try different things. But at the end of the day, everyone is different. Some people need to be method in it 24/7. Some people can just turn it on, turn it off. Most of us are somewhere in the middle, in between, and I think what helped me was finding what works for me, even if it doesn't work for anyone else, and I think this is important when you audition, when you're practicing for an audition or practicing for set or working with a coach or even working with a reader. I feel like you have to trust your instincts as to what is going to make you bring out the best performance. Because if your brain is going, okay, what is the objective? What is this? What is the, if you try and formulaic it and that's not how your brain works, then you're going to be focused on that instead. Some people learn the concept of the scene first and then they focus on the memorization of it. Some people have to memorize it first, just whatever works for you in the preparation point, that's going to give you the confidence when you get on set to be able to do it. And then when you get on set, respect other people's process. If someone's method or in it, or they've got an emotional scene coming up, don't walk up to them and be like, hey, how's it going? Isn't this great? Don't pull them out of it, but also don't be afraid to take what you need. If you need a minute before an emotional scene or an angry scene or any emotion scene, right? Or if you need a minute for not an emotional scene, just to talk, right? Just getting your thoughts together. All right, do I know my lines? Yada, yada. Take what you need, take that space, don't hold everything up and cost them millions of dollars, but it's figure out what works for you and don't let other people bully you or convince you otherwise, because there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of people who think they know everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I love all of those. And speaking of, the SAG strike and those that may be out of work right now, what is your advice, or the 3 things you're focusing on right now is keeping your mental state and your mindset healthy or productive or just present and not in the worrying state and anxiety and stressful state?
Yeah. I feel like when the pandemic hit and everything came to a grinding halt, I feel like I already had my mental breakdown then. I feel like I don't think anyone was prepared for that, right? At least with the strike, we've heard whisperings throughout the year, but the pandemic really just kind of came and just not just career, but fear and society and just the future of the world. And that was like so ultimatum for me, because I was like, you know what? I just moved to LA and I just got my like momentum and everything's going to crap. Now with the strike, I have a little more perspective. I like recognize that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We don't know how long this tunnel is going to be, but there is a light, and it's not going to be the end all be all. We made it through the pandemic. We can make it through this too. And at the end of the day, this is for a good cause. We had like 99% of us agreed to the strike. And there's so many picketers and protesters out there. It's clear that we're all fighting for the betterment of our future. So hopefully it'll make things less stressful moving forward. It'll make things a little easier. It's never good to like be 10 years into a career, feel like you've got this resume, and then still be like struggling to make ends meet because 87% make less than $26,000 and no health insurance. The numbers are staggering. So knowing that there is an light at the end of the tunnel and it's going to be better for it, that helps me. On a personal note, take this time to pursue other passions and other interests and other creative ventures. If you're an actress and you feel like, you're not getting the roles you want, write a script, figure out content creation at this time. Now is the perfect time to write your perfect role and, make it an independent film, because everyone's not doing studios right now. You don't have to worry about funding and all that. Start a YouTube channel, start a blogs. I just started one of the things I've been meaning to do. One of my advocacies is health, tying kind of my past life and my new life together, trying to find a way to use my platform and my voice for that. I just started a blog called raisehealthawareness.com, and it is focused on, a different health awareness month or week or day, just to kind of bring more attention to things that are, not really touched upon so much, especially those that, especially issues that women in like underrepresented communities face, which are often, swept under the rug there. So that's kind of what's been my more recent activity to keep myself busy and, not refreshing my screen and nothing changes. But find something creative, find something that you can also be passionate about. We're not all one trick ponies. There's got to be other things in life that make you happy. And, just, I guess, appreciating the break. I took my first vacation in like 4 years where I didn't have FOMO, because I feel like as an actor, they say like you take a vacation, you get an audition, or you leave the country, that's when you book the role. And that's definitely happened to me before. I booked a role when I was in Alaska once. I was like, I can't really get there. But yeah, I took my first vacation and it was great because I got to turn my brain off.
All of those are incredible. And before we close this out, I have like two more like quick questions. I know you're a fellow traveler. I know you said you've been to Australia. Favorite place that you've been? Because we love traveling.
Oh, I'm a city girl. I've done the beach things and I've done the mountains things, and gosh, I'm definitely a city girl. I've lived in Miami, New York, Chicago, San Francisco. Now I'm in LA. I hit all the big dots on the map. I would say in the US, New York was my favorite place to live, but London was my favorite place to visit. I think there's just so much culture there. There's so much to do. It's like New York's older weird brother. On this vacation, I went to Thailand and got to go to Bangkok for the first time. And that was amazing. It was so different from any place I'd ever been before. The reason it's not my favorite is because of the language barrier. It's a little harder to navigate. Whereas London, I feel like if I ever had to like pick another place to live, I could just go to London and be perfectly content.
That's great. I haven't been to London. I didn't get a chance to go to London, but I have been to Paris, and Paris has my heart right now.
I love Paris.
I love Paris. Love, love, love Paris. And you spoke briefly about, you have received coaching, but you also offer coaching and you also are consult with people. Tell me a bit about that and what you're offering as well.
Sure. So, as far as the coaching goes, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. If you have an audition or if you have classes or you just want to better your craft, I feel like I've been on, a dozen or so TV shows. I've worked on a ton of movies, and I think just like anything else, a little bit of experience, you learn more and more, and you glean things. So, I like to take what I've learned, something as subtle as like, what's the difference between a single cam and a multicam? What is the delivery difference? Because everything, when you break acting down, how you act in a TV show is also different from how you act on film. It's not just drama and comedy. There's nuances, and if you want to apply those nuances to an audition, it even more shows whoever's casting it, like, she gets it or he gets it. So I think coaching has been really helpful for me, just teaching me things that I didn't know until I got there. And now I like to kind of pass that along. I like to see everyone succeed. With the consulting, so that's more on the business side of acting. I feel like that's something that is just not taught very much. You can Google search online and there's like 101 different acting schools, but there's not a lot of information for the business side. And like I said before, it's so important to understand, what do agents value, right? How can you set up your headshots, resume, your demo reel? What is the industry standard? What is going to make you look like a professional versus a person that just threw stuff together and is just like shooting it into the wind? What I do is it's a 90-minute session or so, and we go through all of your materials, and it's really tailored to you because everyone has different goals. Everyone has different experience levels. Everyone, like the advice I would give to someone who's just starting out in their 30s is very different from someone who's starting out when they're 16. Someone who is ethnic is different advice than I would give to someone who is, a lot more opportunities. Someone who has limitations, they have a full-time job and a family, and they're trying to figure out how to get started without taking away from their responsibilities. Different advice from someone who's like, oh yeah, my dad's a director. You know what I mean? So it's custom tailored to you based on what your goals are. And even if the goal is, I just want to be famous, and I have heard that from people before, there's nothing wrong with that. It just means you don't want to be an actor. There's just a different strategy to go about it. And there's better ways to get famous than to become an actor, because acting is a lot of work. So that's what I offer with my consulting. We go over all the materials. We find out what's good, what works, what could be better, what are you missing, what are your next steps. We come up with an actionable plan to get you from wherever you happen to be, whether it's you want to get SAG eligible, whether you want to get an agent, whether you are wanting to get your first speaking role, whether you're trying to go from co-star to guest star. We kind of just tailor it right there. And you can only do that, I think, when you sit down and talk to someone and get to know them and understand where they're coming from and where they want to go.
Well, I love that. Definitely anyone out there, connect with Jackie because she's incredible. If you go to her IMDb, if you don't know that, check it out, or you can find her resume online and you can see all the amazing work she has done and her experience. And I think we're gonna have to do a part 2 and dive deeper into the differences of multicam and single cam and dramas too, because I would love to learn more about the medical drama, because I don't have that type of experience, but I can tell you I've picked up a gun before, and because my dad was a cop, so like that I'm familiar with, right? So, but I would love to learn more about that, and again, single cam, multicam, working on a fantastical series or TV project, and the differences in the prep and how much, because each project has a timeline before and after, especially if you're a day player or a co-star, or you're a lead or supporting. Those things matter when it comes to the audition process. It matters during the prep process. It matters. So I would love to dive in more, and I think we'll have to do a part 2.
Yes, so I would love that. Jackie, it's been so wonderful. I'm sorry if my lovely roommate, she's on her way to Broadway. She's really on her way, and she has to rehearse and start singing something that will interrupt us. But she's a good singer. Yeah, like, you know, it's like I get serenaded all week long. But thank you so much for joining us. This was so helpful, and I mean, it's like Amanda was kind of joking earlier. It does make us feel better because we're in a different place from you, but we've had similar experiences, and it's just nice to hear somebody else. It's like kind of down the line, like repeat what we're saying, and we're like, okay, we're not crazy, right?
Well, we're all a little crazy, you know.
Yeah, you have to be.
I mean, yes, a little bit. Believing in something that's untangible, it's unseeable at times, and this is what it is, and this is having undeniable faith in your abilities and your gifts. And I think you have expressed that in throughout this interview and throughout your life, that you believe in the process, even though you didn't know where it was gonna go. But you said, I'm gonna take the leap because I'm still, again, unfulfilled, or, you know, I'm not gonna be happy in this. It can be done. But really, my goal is happiness. And I think that's I think everyone out there who may be struggling, find your happiness, find your light, find the joy, because that is what's going to feed into your life and the direction that you need to go in your compass. So thank you, Jackie, so much. Follow her on Instagram. I'll drop it in the comments. You know, she's amazing. She's doing all the things, and we could talk about Comic-Con and like doing all that. She's all for it. This strike is it's limiting my conversations.
Yeah, I know.
More, but it's okay. No, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts about this episode?
Drop it in the comments and let us know what you want to dive into next.
Subscribe, like, share, and click the link below to book a free consultation. And
We'll see you next time.